I am using a new software today, Be Live TV, so I didn't anticipate that it would be a problem, so apologies for that. Welcome to the 30-day stress awareness plan. I'm super excited that you've downloaded the plan, and there's plenty of activities and things to do. Today is the first day of the live talks, and we've got some excellent speakers and panelists through the week. Tomorrow we've got Kim Vicente joining us, who's going to do a yoga session, so I'm super excited about that. So it's not just talks, there's going to be activities as well. I will share I'll share the timetable for next week across my channels. And so thanks for hopping on. And I just want to talk today a little bit about stress. But firstly, can everybody see me? Can you hear me? Let's have a look. Okay. So I'm presuming everyone can hear and see me okay. So yeah, I just want to talk a little bit about stress today then. And I just want to talk about it in, I guess, 4 sections. What is stress in terms of common signs and symptoms, stress reactions, the neurobiological and thinking part of stress in terms of we have choices, and also an exercise, and then a Q&A. So you can type comments in the box and I will be able to see them and answer any questions. I'm going to try and share my screen with you, and bear with me a second. So, can you see the first screen? Just tell me if you can see it or not. It should be a lady which says reinforce, energize, and focus. Hey, Petra. Hey, Flick. Can you see my screen? Can you see the lady with the coffee cup? Just tell me if you can see it or not. Can you see her? No? Okay. So so you can see me, but you can't see this. Can you see this now? Oh, perfect. Okay, I'll just have to hold it there. So yeah, I really just want to talk about stress today, just in terms of the 4 areas that I've spoken about. In terms of, and let's start with what a definition of stress is, because I think everybody has a different understanding of what stress is. And so really, I think that to kind of set us up, I think it's helpful to think about stress in terms of a mental or physical tension or strain that results from a reaction to a situation where we feel threatened, pressured, anxious, nervous, fearful, impatient, or restless. So we're out of control. And really what starts to happen here is that we have what I would call a stress reaction. And most of you will be familiar with fight and flight. But the other one I want to add into the mix is freeze, because often when we are stressed, so our bodies, our heart rate increases, our pupils dilate, we become sweaty, our digestion shuts down, and that's why many people that suffer with excessive stress can have irritable bowel syndrome and other kinds of digestive problems, because actually our body stops digesting food as we should. And we get into that kind of fight or flight mode. So back in the day when we needed to run and to catch our food, we would be energized by this feeling of stress and go off and fight the animals and catch our food. But nowadays we've got quite sedentary lifestyles, so most of us probably work in office environments or places actually where we're sitting down a lot. And currently with this lockdown and Corona crisis, we're all at home and we're quite sedentary. So actually we get a build up of what I would call neurotransmitters, our dopamine and cortisol, that's enacted when we get in fight and flight mode. And if we don't burn this up, it actually leaves us feeling pretty stressed. And I think stress can be helpful. So there's that helpful element of stress that gets us motivated, that gets us to do things, that, you know, when you feel a bit of time pressure and you have to do something, I think stress can be quite helpful. But actually when it's gone out of control, when we're under too much pressure for too long, that's when it becomes a problem. And so sometimes our reaction to that is actually to freeze. And that's when we do nothing, when we procrastinate, when we are just too afraid to do anything about the stress. And actually, that's when our thoughts can become toxic and become a problem. So what starts to happen is we start to experience feelings of stress, and they usually become something that's inactive physically in our bodies. So we start to feel tense, our muscles are tense, we get headaches, fatigue, difficulty sleeping, struggling to concentrate. Our attitude can become really negative because we're focusing on all the things that are difficult and that we can't do, and we become angry and irritable. And there are many more signs and symptoms, and you may want to put some of those in the comments. But I guess the point is that stress impacts us negatively when it's on overload. According to the World Health Organization, 80% of cancers are due to lifestyle, not genetics. And actually 75% of all primary care visits, so all visits to the GP, are actually something to do with stress and stress related. And if you are following the 30-day program and you have signed up and downloaded to that, yesterday you would have got a video which has an animation of a guy called Aidan who's experiencing stress in his job and how he reacts to that. And I think the reality is it's much easier for us to talk about physical pains and things that are tangible with stress than to acknowledge potentially an emotional feeling of stress. And so what happens in our brains, just before I go on to speak about the neurobiological side of thinking, I just want you to, if you haven't joined us already, I'm going to put a link at the end of this video to download that, and it would be really good if you could watch that video, because I think it would be really, really, really helpful. And please put in the comments any signs of stress that you may be experiencing. So I just want to come on to the neurobiological side of thinking. And really there are 7 different types of thinking. And there are 4 parts of our brain in terms of our lobes, our frontal lobe, our temporal lobe, and these 7 different thinking types are generally how we respond. And in layman's terms, I often think about it as the right side of the brain and the left side of the brain. So the right side being more of the creative, touchy-feely side, and the left side being much more logical and mathematical. And at the moment, as we're all sitting at home and we have less to occupy our time with, I think there's a real kind of intrapersonal introspection into, you know, ourselves and being with our own thoughts. And then obviously our interpersonal thinking and connection and needing to be with other people, because we're human beings and actually we do need each other. And then the linguistic side of thinking, how we communicate, what we say. And obviously we are logical as well and mathematical, some more than others. If you are more left-brained, you would be more logical and more into facts. The kind of aesthetic thinking is around touch and feel and really being able to be experiential and experience things. And then you have more musical and visual thinking. And this type of thinking, I don't really want to get too much into the types of thinking in this session. I just want to get you to think about, actually, this is our mental real estate. Our types of thinking is actually how we process and think about things. And there's a load of electromagnets, electrochemicals, quantum neuros, and all these electrical pulse impulses that can be tracked. And actually, if you are subscribed to any kind of meditation apps, or you're into prayer, or you're spiritual in any way, you'll recognize that actually vibrations are measurable. And you will know that fear actually is our lowest vibration. But the point here is actually that our intricate and organized sequence of actions, our thoughts, are our energy. And actually this changes our brains and it changes the way we think and react. And the point here is we're actually in control of what we think about. That free will is not an illusion. We can choose our thoughts. And you influence your behavior, and the things that you do are influenced by your thoughts. So there is power in what you think. And really I want to talk about the way that we can actually choose our thoughts. And I just want to do this quick exercise where we think about a stress bucket. And a stress bucket has, for me as a psychotherapist, we talk about containers, but I think it's helpful as a metaphor to think about this in terms of a stress bucket. And actually that our buckets are all different sizes because we all respond to stress in different ways. And we also have, in different points in our life, we have different stressors and different things happening. So sometimes we feel quite resilient and our mental health is quite healthy. And other times actually we fall into the spectrum of mental ill health, and we might be depressed or anxious because of a bereavement or a loss of our job, or something's happened to us that's made us feel stressed. And I think sometimes, often when we think about mental health, we think about mental illness, and we think about schizophrenia and bipolar and all the serious mental health issues, and they're relevant, but actually we all have mental health and we all experience stress, anxiety, depression at some point in our lives. And so really what I'm asking today is how big is your stress bucket, or how big is your container? Because in therapy, we think about the container being the place where you can put all of your difficult thoughts, all of your anxieties, all of your worries, and it's a place where you can process and think about some of those things and what's actually going on. And obviously, the bigger your bucket, the more you can tolerate. And so I think it's really important to think about actually what is inside of your bucket. what are all the things at the moment that are making you feel stressed? And if you think about it, you could probably find a number of things that are making you feel stressed at the moment. But the reality is that you can't deal with everything all at once. And so, what needs your urgent attention? What are the stresses that you absolutely can't ignore? And I think it's really important to pick the things that you can actually start to make a change on. So, none of us can do anything about this coronavirus or the lockdown that many of us are in. We can't do anything about that. So there's no point in trying to resolve that, because that's not going to happen right at this moment in time. But we can choose what we do with our time in this lockdown period, whether it's going to be a creative time, a time to rest, a time to do things that we don't usually have time to do, or whether it's actually going to be a time where we stress about our finances, where we stress about our, our children, homeschooling, all of the pressures that we've got at the moment on top of, day-to-day things. We can choose to focus on those things. So if you think about what are your 10 stressors, perhaps we can just throw some comments out there in the chat box. And send me, so out of those things, I want you to just pick the top 3 things that you can start to make a change with. The top 3 things. And in that stress bucket, there are going to be some things that I guess we just have to accept. There are going to be things that we can't change at the moment. And, that's not about forgetting about them or pushing them down or repressing them and denying them. This is more around actually at an unconscious level, how being aware of what it is that you cannot change and just putting those things on hold for the moment. Yeah, I think uncertainty is a really key thing at the moment that we can't do anything about. So if that was in your stress bucket, then I guess the reality is that you have to put that on hold at the moment, because we can't change the uncertainty. But there are things in your stress bucket that you can focus on and that you can do something about. And on Monday, you are going to receive an email with or if you're on the Messenger 30-day program, you're going to receive an exercise called Stress Time, which will help you to focus and give this some of your time. So try to focus on the top 3 things that you can do something about, because uncertainty is definitely going to be there, and we have to have a bigger bucket to contain that. But the uncertainty of what's going on at the moment is something that we definitely can't change at the moment. So I guess my next question would be, what can I get help with? Because there are going to be some things in your stress bucket that you can get help with. And I think sometimes we, when we're anxious or when we're stressed about things, it's really difficult to share our concerns with other people. And that's not around, not wanting to worry other people. But sometimes I think we feel a bit ashamed or embarrassed that we can't manage. And sometimes just being able to talk through with someone and get help really helps us to change the way we think. So what can you get help with? Hello, can you see me and hear me again? I disappeared. Uncluttering your house. Yes, Penny Morgan, I think that you can get help with uncluttering your house. To unclutter our thoughts, I think we have to give them a space. And so, you know, I've worked with hoarders for a long time. And I think that sometimes when we hoard things that we are holding on to something that we have perhaps thought about those things as an object, as a way of saving those moments or saving those thoughts. And often we need to think about actually our emotional connection to those things rather than the things themselves. So I definitely recommend that you think about actually what is cluttering and what is really cluttering your house. And perhaps if you were able to unclutter your mind somewhat, you would find it easier to make space in your house. Asking for more virtual contact with friends and family. Absolutely. I think this is the time to do that. I certainly am trying to reach out to people and be genuine, that, you know, I want to make connection. I think doing this 30-day program is because I want to make connections with people. So definitely reaching out and scheduling stuff. Like tonight I have scheduled some gin and tonic with friends. I think it's really important that we schedule stuff and make it happen. Don't just leave it till it's just like meeting people in reality, that we don't just do it at a whim most of the time. Some of us do, but scheduling those virtual hugs, if you like, or virtual contact in. So absolutely. So any more thoughts or questions around stress and the stress bucket? Would it be helpful for me to share these slides with you? Okay, so I am going to jump off now. I will post this video in the Facebook group. If you have not joined the 30-day program, I recommend it. Next week, we have some fantastic speakers. We have Kim tomorrow for a yoga session at 2 o'clock. We have got 2 mindfulness sessions, one on Monday, one on Tuesday. And we've got Erin Hallett from UCL, the head of alumni relations, sharing her own personal story of anxiety and stress. We've got Gaia and Gilda on the Saturday talking about nutrition for well-being. We've got Dr. Lisa Gogbashian talking about hope and an Easter message of hope. And then we've got Trang, who, if you haven't met Trang yet, going to be totally energized by her. She's going to be delivering a Pilates session on Sunday next week. So I'm going to post the timetable in the group, so you've got that. Everyone that's subscribed to the email or the messenger, they will get the timetable that will go directly to their inbox or their messenger account. And I look forward to seeing you over the next 30 days. I hope that you're able to use the stress bucket and stop being distracted by coronavirus and all of these other things that are filling us up. So let's fill ourselves up with the things that we can control this week. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow with our yoga session, which will be live at 2. Thanks for joining us.